For 20 years, our next guest was a huge and vital and important part of our family here at MSNBC, doing something that was easy for him but hard for the rest of us, offering his staple, direct, no-nonsense interviews and always asking all of his guests the hard questions. In his new memoir, This Country, My Life in Politics and History, Chris Matthews charts his American story through his life and career, talking deeply with abiding faith about where we've been and where he hopes we'll go. Given the ongoing conversation on this program and over the last 2 hours about the insurrection at our nation's capital, I want to read this from Chris's new book. Quote, "No one could have truly foreseen how badly the presidency of Donald Trump would end. After losing the 2020 election, Trump tried every legal and PR trick he could to overturn those results. Well past the ratification of the vote in the Electoral College on December 14th, he continued to insist to his 74.2 million voters that he had won in a landslide. In those last months of 2020, I thought that was the worst thing he could do as president. What I watched in January 2021 told me I had been wrong. The only thing worse would have been if he'd gotten himself reelected. 4 more years of this guy might have been a national horror impossible to fully obliterate." Joining us now is my friend, the longtime host of MSNBC's Hardball and the author of This Country. Hi there, Chris Matthews.
Oh, it's great to be on your very popular show. You are really doing the job here at MS. Really, you are. 2 hours? Come on. That is nuts. It is.
I think you warned me about the 2-hour thing, and I should have listened to you.
Good for you. You did. By the way, just to follow up on this, the opening, I love the way you opened it because Trump, I didn't start off disliking the guy. There was no visceral problem between me and him. I covered him for years when he was sort of clowning around, talking about running for president. But he's up there with Benedict Arnold right now. He's a traitor to our beliefs. The great thing about our country is the intertwining of elections and freedom. They go together. You don't have freedom without elections. You don't have elections without freedom. And he's cut right through that by saying the election didn't happen, almost like in a developing country. He lost an election, so he said it was rigged. Come on. Hillary Clinton, Al Gore, John McCain, John Kerry, everybody, Mitt Romney, they know how to lose. It takes guts and patriotism to stand before your voters and say, I did my best, I lost. This other person is president of the United States. Let's be loyal to this other person. They all have done it going back to the first person that lost, I guess John Adams. And this guy can't do it. He's not man enough to walk before his people and say, I blew it in my mishandling of Corona all the way. And I got an opponent who's a pretty popular guy, Joe Biden, he beat me. I'm going to live with it because that's the way the American people want their country run, where people walk away from power the way that George Washington walked away from power. He didn't choose to be a dictator. He could have been a dictator. He went right back to Virginia and said, I believe in America. And that means going home when your job is through.
I worked on John McCain's concession speech to President Obama, and I know that John McCain and Mark Salter, who wrote that exquisite speech for him, John McCain felt like it was one of the most important speeches of his career. But you just said something that I think, as you always do, gets right to the crux of it. The concession speech is about your patriotism. It is about bestowing legitimacy on the rightful victor. Do you have the conclusion that Trump was never patriotic at all?
I think it was a work in progress. He got worse as he went on. He certainly did. I mean, he must have noticed that he lost the first race, or he lost the first race by 4 million, the second one by 7 million. These were not close calls. These were not squeakers. And for him to lie and say that he won is absurd. And for people to follow him, you got to wonder, what do they think of democracy? What do they think of their vote? Is their vote owned by Trump, or do they have the vote? What are they thinking when they say Trump got reelected, knowing he did not? The states that he won in 2016 by squeakers, he lost by squeakers. Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, those states, and then, of course, Arizona, he lost. It's painfully obvious he lost. And then on the 5th, he said, I didn't. And there's a progression of horror that led to. You said that I know how bad he was. First of all, he says he won, which he didn't. And then we had January 6th, which he encouraged to happen. And then 2/3 of the Republican Party, up to 70% actually, said Trump's right, he won. And then we had the general, Michael Flynn, who I didn't think was this bad when I first met him, saying we should, that's a great word, we should have a military coup. This is a natural progression. It's a prologue to something worse. And if he'd gotten reelected, that would have been that something worse. Well, thank God he has no constitutional power left at all. He can't do anything except talk. The sad thing about this country is, and I care about this country, that a third of it believes this trap, this crap, this lie about our history. And it's really the first time in our history. This happens all the time in countries in Africa and other parts of the world that are new to democracy, where the winner arrests everybody and the loser claims it was a rigged election. But we know our elections are honest in this country. They really are honest. And they're decided by 70,000 votes, 50,000 votes. These aren't squeakers that you can explain by somebody cheating somewhere here or there. We know who won. Does Trump? That's the ideological and psychological question. Is he just a liar or is he nuts? You tell me. Maybe he's a mix. But we know he lost.
What do you think? What do you think? Liar or nuts?
I think he's a goneff, a guy who doesn't pay his bills. You know, for years we heard he never paid his bills. He has a bill to this country. A politician's debt. And that's the debt of saying you lose when you lose. That's the deal. You shouldn't run for office if you can't walk up to the country and the state or the county or whatever, the mayor of a city. You should run for office if you can't accept defeat, because it's part of the game. It is a game in that sense, because every time there's an election, somebody loses. Maybe a number of people in a primary lose, and you got to walk before your people and tell them, I lost. I wish I won. We all wish I'd won, but this other person is now the candidate of our party, or in the general election, they're the office holder to come. I was thinking that I'm a romantic about this politics. I think about Adlai Stevenson, who said, I'm too old to cry, but it hurts too much to laugh. I think about Hillary Clinton, shocked by what happened in 2016, going down to the Pennsylvania Hotel across from Penn Station, in that hotel, standing in front of her people and saying the right thing, that Trump's president of the United States. Or Richard Nixon losing a squeaker. It was so close. It was so close. It was painful. Any move he had made, he might have won. And there he went and met with Jack Kennedy down in Key Biscayne. They had a couple of Cokes together, and he certified the victory for Jack Kennedy. And he didn't want to do it. He had his suspicions about what had happened in Chicago with Mayor Daley and what happened in Texas with Lyndon Johnson in charge. And no two-party system, as you remember, Nicole, back then. You don't remember it, but there was no Republican Party in Texas in 60. And so nobody watched, the poll watchers. Who knows how many ballots LBJ got his hands on? Or Dick Daley was able to when he called up Kennedy and said, with the help of a few good friends. We know what that meant. You're going to carry Illinois. And Nixon still, because he didn't want to ruin our country and disable us during the Cold War. He knew we needed to be united. Where's that from Trump? A sense of nationalism, a sense of, he says America first. It wasn't America first when he said, I won the election. It was Trump first. That should be his battle flag. Trump first, because it's certainly not America first.